Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody can hear my voice and see the presentation on the screen. Excellent. So, today we are going to take a look at, I think, what would be probably one of the last topics of verbal reasoning. We have taken a look at least the major topics as far as the major topics are concerned. We have taken a look at assumptions and arguments. So, the last of the major topics in verbal reasoning would be conclusions. So, today we are going to take a look at various examples of conclusions and how we go about solving these questions. But before I do that, this week I've had a lot of calls and messages from students saying that they are preparing for their boards as well, and pre boards maybe are going on or expected in a short time. And they were concerned about how to go about preparing for these examinations. They were said that they could not manage time and they wanted to know how to schedule their entire day so that they can make maximum utilization. Should they stop preparing for the entrance exams when they are focusing on boards and so on and so forth? So, I'm going to spend the first few minutes of this session just giving you a simple tool of how you can organize your own day. Now, remember, this is a method which I have been using for ages. I've been doing this since my college days, and I found that it is a very easy method. It's actually a very it actually works. This method works for me. So I'm just going to show you how I schedule my entire day, and I've been doing this for tons of years now, right from my college days till now. I use the same technique, and it helps me productively use the maximum portion of my day. So I'll just spend a few minutes explaining that, and then we can move on to the main topic of the day. So what I do is I prepare a written timetable for myself of every day, right from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep. I divide my entire day into slots of half an hour. Yes, you heard me right. I divide my entire day into slots of just half hour each. So starting from 6 in the morning, 6 to 6:30, 6:30 to 7, 7 to 7:30, I write down all the half an hour slots. I don't skip a single one. Then what I do is first I fill in those slots which are already fixed with activities and which cannot be changed. Like 6 to 6:30, where I wake up, complete all my morning activities, brushing and falana and dhimkana and everything. So yes, Krish. So I put that slot. Then 6:30 to 7, I generally occupy myself with eating breakfast. And while eating breakfast, I don't watch YouTube or something like that. I read newspapers. So I can combine reading of newspapers with breakfast. So I save half an hour like that. Then 7 to 7:30, let us say that I keep it for some light reading, or say reading of a novel or reading of a newspaper or reading of articles or something like that. Then let's assume that 7:30 to 12:30 or 7:30 to 2:30, whatever is the time, is occupied by school sessions. Now, normally in regular days, I would have put an extra slot, because if the school starts at 7:30, then 7 to 7:30 I would spend going to school. Physically, it would take me some time to reach school. But nowadays, because of online classes, we save that much time on commuting. So I simply, when I finish 7:30 reading, I can just log on to the classroom. So 7:30 to 2:30 or whatever it is, right? So like that, half an hour slots, I plan my entire day. And here I have not explicitly put, but I also add 1 or 2 half an hour breaks in between. For example, I come back from school, let us say at 1 o'clock, and 1 to 1:30 is my lunch time. So I put 1 to 1:30 lunch, then 1:30 to 2, I purposely put it as break, right? After eating lunch, I don't immediately start working. I put it as break. So 1.5 hours, like spread across the day. I also include my breaks in my timetable. And then supposing I want to do something continuously for 1 hour, let us say, then I schedule it as 2 consecutive sessions, 9 to 9:30, 9:30 to 10, right? So starting from the moment I wake up to the time I go to bed, I divide my entire day into slots of half an hour, and then each hour, including if it is nothing but just time pass, I write it down. So that gives me a fair idea of actually how many hours I have in a day which I can productively spend. And why do I put it into slots of half an hour? Because let us say that I divide my work into slots of 1 hour, right? And 1 hour में if I study only for 45 minutes, then I feel bad कि यार मैंने slot पूरा complete नहीं किया, I wasted it. But supposing I put it into 2 slots of half an hour each, तो एक हाफ एन आवर का पूरा स्लॉट तो मैंने अच्छे से पढ़ाई की, अगले स्लॉट में सिर्फ 15 मिनट्स ही कर पाया. सो मेंटली साइकोलॉजिकली दैट गिव्स मी द एडवांटेज दैट आई हैव नॉट वेस्टेड मच टाइम. Right. Also, when you take a look at it, instead of dividing it into 24 hours, if I divide it into 48 slots of half an hour, it gives me psychologically the feeling that I have got more time to use in a day and I can productively use it. So what I do is I write this down in my diary. Even today, I maintain a daily diary of activities. Previous night, before going to sleep, I completely fill in the table of the next day. I plan my entire day, including things like unexpected meetings or unexpected activities for the family. Everything I write it down. And next day, as and when I keep completing these activities one by one, I keep ticking them off. So just before going to bed, when I sit with my diary and review, it gives me a fair idea of whether I have spent the day productively or not. Just deciding in my mind what all activities I have to do at the end of the day, I'm not sure how I spent my day. Sometimes I may even forget to do one or two things. But if I have written everything down, then I know exactly how much work is there, how much time I can use for my break, how much time I have to spend productively, and so on and so forth. So divide in it for every day. Now, Shashwat, one size never fits all, right? So it is up to you to decide when you are going to do school studies, right? मैं बोलूँगा भाई खाने में रोटी खाओ, तो ऐसा थोड़ी है कि रोटी ही कंपलसरी खाओगे. आपके घर चावल बनता होगा तो आप चावल खाओगे. दिस इज द मेथड, दिस इज द आउटलाइन ऑफ द प्रोसेस दैट आई फॉलो. हाउ यू फिल इन द टाइम टेबल इज अप टू यू. आई बिलीव यू आर नॉट नाउ स्कूल किड्स ऑफ नर्सरी जहाँ पे मेरे को एक्सप्लिसिटली बोलना पड़ेगा कि यार 10 बजे को ये करो, 11 बजे का ये करो. दिस इज जस्ट द आउटलाइन दैट आई एम गिविंग हाउ आई प्लान माई डे. Using this as an outline, if you fill in these slots, you will be able to find out exactly how much time is already engaged in activities which is compulsory, and the remaining time how much you have so that you can spend it, right? So Namra, making the timetable can be done but not able to follow it strictly. Very simple. Write it down and put it in a public space. फॉर एग्जाम्पल बचपन में आई यूज टू पुट इट ऑन द डोर ऑफ माई रूम, समटाइम्स ऑन द रेफ्रिजरेटर, ताकि आते जाते मुझे तो दिखे, घर वालों को भी दिखता रहे, और घर वाले मोर ऑफन देर नॉट पूछते रहेंगे हाँ भैया टाइम टेबल क्या बनाया तो है, कैसे चल रहा है, कैसे चल रहा है, राइट? पहले 2-3 दिन इट बिकम्स अ बिट डिफिकल्ट, राइट? ऐसे भी लगेगा कि बहुत टॉन्ट मार रहे हैं, बहुत पीछे पड़े हैं, बट इट नेवर द लेस हेल्प्स मी कीप माई सेल्फ ऑन द टोस, राइट? And I never make long timetables or unrealistic timetables. If I put only study in the timetable with no break, my mind rebels and says कि यार बहुत पढ़ाई हो रही है, मैं tired हो रहा हूँ. But if I have actually put the word break, relax in my timetable, then you will see that my brain sees that yes, I have scheduled break for myself. So let me stick to it, because if I stick to my work, then I can also stick to my break and relax periods. So it takes a little bit of self-discipline to continue with it. But if you're able to do it even for a week, then it becomes a habit, and you will see that you are very effectively able to manage your time. Do that, right? Shashwat, okay, parents say early to bed, early to rise. It's not actually a bad thing, because in college, when you reach colleges, the classes will start sometimes pretty early in the morning, right? And so you have to make it a habit early to rise. But the early to bed part, now that is no longer true in this world, because you don't actually have the luxury of limited number of hours. So if anybody here is sleeping for more than 6 hours a day, total time of sleep, if it's more than 6 or 7 hours, you are actually wasting all that time, right? Yes, many that you can show me medical reports and research which says you need minimum 8 hours of sleep, or this hours of sleep, or that hours of sleep. You can do all that when your body gets older and tired. At a young age, if you're sleeping for more than 6 or 7 hours, 7 hours itself is a luxury. If you're sleeping for more than 6 hours, you're wasting so much of your time. You can always sleep later when you have settled and accomplished things in life. But as of now, I believe 6 hours of sleep is more than enough to let your body regenerate. So if you're sleeping for 8 hours or more, then that's absolutely criminal, right? So yes, early to bed, yes, but early to rise is correct, but early to bed, I wouldn't agree with. I mean, how early is early? If I say 10, 11, yes, till that, if you can wake up and then go to bed, that's fine. Don't push it too late, but going to bed as early as 8 or 9 is too early. 10, 11, that's fair enough, but then you should be able to wake up at 5 or 6 in the morning, right? Chalo. Vanshika says it's hard to balance school tuition and entrance prep during pandemic. Now I do not understand how you are actually finding it difficult, because you're actually saving more time by not traveling to school and stuff, right? When real and live schools were there, more time had to be spent even on traveling to school, coming back, traveling to tuitions, coming back. All that extra time is now saved, right? And now I see that you can actually multitask. If let us say that you are attending a lecture, then you can always be doing something at the same time. Let us say the homework for that lecture. Who says you have to completely attend the lecture even if you're half asleep and then take extra time? Why not do it simultaneously? For example, teachers have the habit of repeating the same concept, right? So you can sit down with, let us say, some writing material, and when the teacher, if you've already understood the concept once, then next time when the teacher is repeating in the class, you can sit there and do something else, right? Or you can simply keep a vocabulary word list. If you, let us say, the school English lecture is going on, right? Your teacher is re-explaining a concept, then and you have already understood it. Instead of just sitting away doing nothing, just read a couple of extra words from a vocabulary list. So multitasking is actually possible in these times. In school, you could not have done that in the actual classroom. In virtual classrooms, you can very well do that, right? You can actually do 2 or more things together. So it is up to you to spend time productively. You have to decide that yes, I'm interested in cracking some of the top entrance examinations. I'm also going to do well in my boards. I want to be among the best, and this is how I'm going to do it. Because believe me, students who manage to do well in boards are generally among those who also do well in entrance exams and very well in their life. And it is not because they're already intelligent or studs or something, but simply because they have known how to manage their own time and they are disciplined in a lot of things. So don't think that if एक में कर सकते हैं तो दूसरा नहीं. People who are good are generally good at everything, and that is simply because they have learned how to manage their time well. Look at the toppers of various institutions and you will be surprised at the number of extracurricular activities also that they are involved in. जो toppers होते हैं, most of them, maybe not all, but most of them are also good at a lot of other activities. If I look back at my own school days, college days, graduation, post graduation, जो top rankers होते थे आपकी भाषा में, toppers जो होते थे, they were most often the people who are also actively involved in all the extracurricular activities. और जो bottom of the class होते थे वो more often than not किसी भी activity में participate नहीं करते थे. So it's just being able to work smart, as Garvit says, right? Smart worker बनो. Intelligent होना अलग बात है, but if you are able to be disciplined, focused and work smart with the limited amount of time, then guaranteed you will be able to do well. Chalo, I'll send a sample PDF of how I planned my entire day, if possible by the end of day. But I hope this at least gives you a basic idea of how you can prepare a timetable and stick to it. It will be difficult for the first few days, but if you don't give up and you constantly keep doing it, it becomes a habit. Okay? Chalo. Moving on. Let's move on to the topic of the day. We are going to do statements and conclusions. अब statements and conclusions के अंदर क्या होता है, that you are given a statement, simple छोटा one liner followed by 2 conclusions, 1 and 2. Whatever is given in the statement, that has to be assumed as true. Whatever you are given in this statement, it has to be assumed as true. And then from the given statement, you will be given 2 conclusions. You have to guess which of the conclusions can be derived from the statement. Now, unlike assumptions or arguments, there aren't many shortcuts or tricks to this. It's just how well you read, understand, and interpret the given options, right? So there are no great pointers or shortcuts we can keep in mind. Like for assumptions, we used to do the 2-part test. For arguments, there were certain types of arguments which we would consider weak or strong. In conclusions, it's just whether you are able to derive whatever is given as the conclusion from whatever is given as the statement. Okay? Okay, before I move ahead, I just answer Shashwat's questions. He says, if today's time is missed, should it be added in tomorrow's time? You should, first of all, you should be smart enough to prepare a timetable, keeping in mind that there should be no spillover. Because एक spillover होते जाएगा, lifelong वो spillovers continue होते जाएंगे. Whenever I create a timetable, I do something called buffer time. For example, if I know that I need 3 hours to complete the work, I will make sure that I have got half an hour extra. जो मेरा ब्रेक होगा, जो मेरा स्लीप होगा, उसमें से मैं टाइम कम करूंगा, लेकिन जो मेरी एक्टिविटीज होंगी, I try my level best not to take it to the next day. If I take it to the next day, if I make it a habit to take it to the next day, that is procrastination, that is laziness. You will be comfortable with the concept of postponing it for tomorrow, and then tomorrow never comes. So first of all, when preparing the timetable, make sure you have made an intelligent timetable. You have not made an unrealistic timetable. And second, as far as possible, no postponement of activities. I will cut down on my sleep. I will cut down on my break. I will cut down on my relaxed time. But whatever is a compulsory activity, I will make sure that I have done it the day. If because of unforeseen circumstances, I am required to postpone it, then of course I will have to. I cannot leave that job. I have to complete it. But as far as possible, I will try to complete every single scheduled activity within the same day. I hope that answers the question, and we will move on now to the statements and conclusions, right? So at the top of the screen, the key is given, right? What is A, B, C, D, E. So if only, and it is a standard thing, right? Only one of them can be true, both can be true, neither can be true, either can be true, so on and so forth. So jumping directly into our first question. The first statement says, in a one-day cricket match, if the total runs made by a team was 200, right? Out of this, 160 runs were made by spinners. What can you conclude? 1, 80% of the team consists of spinners. Second, the opening batsmen were spinners. Which one of these conclusions can be derived from the given statement? Very logical. Okay. I'm getting all different sort of options. Interesting. Very interesting question. And I'm getting a lot of correct answers are there, but I'm also getting a lot of incorrect ones. ठीक है, चलो सोचते हैं. It says that in a one-day cricket match, the total runs made by a team were 200, and out of 200, 160 runs were made by spinners. That means 80% of runs were made by spinners, right? Can I conclude that 80% of the team was of spinners? That means if there are 10 players, does it mean that 8 players have to be spinners? Why do 80% of the team needs to be of spinners? जो टोटल रन है 200 में से, उसमें से 80% रन स्पिनर्स ने बनाया है. Even if there is just one spinner in the team and he hits 160 runs out of 200, isn't it possible? Do I need to have 8 spinners out of 10 for scoring 160 runs out of 200? No. Just because 80% of the runs were scored by spinners does not mean 80% of the team members were actually spinners. Right? So the first conclusion does not have to be true. The first conclusion definitely does not have to be true, right? Even if 80% of the team is not spinners, my statement, how do I know that 80% of the team is spinners? I can't conclude that. Second, how do I conclude that the opening batsmen were spinners, right? Why should the opening batsmen have been spinners? From the statement, how do I understand that the opening batsmen were spinners? हो सकता है ओपनिंग बैट्समैन वर नॉन स्पिनर्स, पहले ही रन में डक में आउट हो गए, उसके बाद स्पिनर्स ने आके 160 ठोका, राइट? सो इवन इफ द ओपनिंग बैट्समैन वर नॉट स्पिनर्स, my statement still says that nothing is there in the statement which leads me to believe that these facts can be concluded. So I cannot make this conclusion from what is given in these statements. And hence, because neither one of them is true, my answer option definitely has to be D. Did everybody understand this one? My answer option for this particular example definitely has to be D. I cannot conclude either one of them because nothing in the statement leads me to believe. Right? Statement में ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं दिया है जिससे मैं बोल सकूं अच्छा because of this conclusion is true. So neither one of them is true. Are we together on this? Did everybody understand this? I hope everybody got this one. Then moving on to the next one. The old order changes, yielding or giving place to new. If somebody makes a statement like this, then what do you believe? From this statement, what do you understand? What is the meaning of this statement? The old order changes, yielding place to the new. From this, if this is said to you in your mind, would you conclude that one, change is the law of nature? Second, would you conclude that discard old ideas because they are old? Yielding means giving place to. I yield my place to you. I give up my place to you. So to yield means to surrender or to give up. So if the statement says the old order changes, yielding place to you new, कि पुराना बदलता है और नई को अपनी जगह देता है, this generally gives us the idea that परिवर्तन संसार का नियम है. This exactly is that, right? What do you conclude from this? When it says that the old things, when they give up their place to let the new take their place, then we believe that change is the law of the nature. That is automatically what comes to our mind. So the first one is definitely true. Now, second, it says old order changes, yielding place to new. Does it mean that we discard old idea because they are old? Do we give up old ideas just because they are old? That would mean that old people have no place in this world. Are old people replaced simply because they are old? No, right? How do we conclude that being old is the reason why they are giving up? Just because it says that the old order changes and gives the place to new, from that we cannot make a conclusion that old ideas were removed because they were old. The old ideas were removed because there could be some other reason, right? They could still be there, but naye ko chance. For example, in companies, the old workers can still be very active, but if they keep on working, the new people may never get a chance. And that's why we say, चलो नए को भी मौका मिलना चाहिए. That does not mean कि पुराने वालों को हमने ऐसे बुढ़ापे की वजह से discard कर दिया है, right? So the second is not necessarily true, and hence only the first one is actually a feasible conclusion that we can derive from the given statements. Are we together on this? Now, Namra says, if the second conclusion was discard old ideas as they're inefficient, what would be the answer? Again, Namra, do you get this conclusion from the statement? Does the statement give you a reason why the old is being replaced with the new? Exactly, right? Think of it like this. The statement should explain the conclusion. The statement should help you derive the conclusion. Remember, this is not an assumption, right? So conclusion should be from the statement. So the statement, nowhere it gives me any reason of why the change is taking place. So I cannot conclude any specific reason for that change, right? So even if a reason is given as a conclusion, because it cannot be derived from the passage, and hence it cannot be effective as a conclusion. Chalo. Exactly, Khwahish. Chalo. Good. Next one. Now this is interesting. Statement. It says government has spoiled many top ranking financial institutions by appointing bureaucrats as directors of these institutions. Government has spoiled many top ranking financial institutions by appointing bureaucrats as directors of these institutions. What do you conclude? If this is the idea, if this is the statement which is made, automatically, what would you give as a conclusion? What would you say should be done now? What should happen next? What should happen next? Okay. So the moment you hear कि bureaucrats को appoint किया है financial institution में as a director, because of which the financial institution is not doing well. So immediately the conclusion that you get is that if the appointed person is not fit, then technically we should appoint them with people who are actually competent enough to do the job. People who have the necessary expertise to do the job. So the first conclusion says that government should appoint director of the financial institutions taking into consideration the expertise of the person in area of finance. Yes, because the current appointment is not proper, definitely the new appointments should be taking into consideration that they are experts.
And if you take a look at the second conclusion, more or less it is the same. The second also says the same thing, that director of the financial institute should have expertise commensurate. Commensurate means in proportion. So it says the director of the financial institute should have expertise commensurate or in proportion with the financial work carried out by the institute. So more or less both of them are saying the same thing. The thing is, first government should do it, second says whoever is done should have this, but more or less they are the same. So either both of them are true or both of them are false, right? It cannot be just one of them, because technically both of these mean the same thing. And yes, this is the kind of thought which comes to our mind the moment we hear of a problem, that if the problem is by the appointment, then this seems to be the correct solution. And because it is the correct solution and both of them have to be considered together, obviously E has to be the answer. There is no difference between them. Technically speaking, first one is what the government should do. Second, whoever does it should take this into consideration. But more or less it is the same, and hence both of them are correct. Because if you think one of them is valid, the other one also has to be automatically valid. It cannot be just one of them, because both of them more or less mean the same thing. Are we together on this? Did we get it? I hope everybody understood, right? Some of you might have said they look same, but yes, they are the same. And because they are the same, they both of them are of the same type. Either both are true or both are false. It cannot be just one of them. I hope everybody got this one, right? Easy. Chalo. Moving on. Next one. Population increase coupled with depleting resources is going to be the scenario of many developing countries in days to come. If this is the statement made, what do you think is going to happen next? If this is the statement made, what do you think is going to happen next? Oh, majority are getting this one right. Brilliant. Majority are getting this one right. So nice. So the first one says, it says that population increase coupled with depleting resources is going to be the scenario of many developing countries, right? Population increase is a problem. First conclusion says the population of developing countries will not continue to increase in the future. If population increase is a problem, how do you say that population will not increase? It's a non sequitur. It is something which is not matching what has been previously said. So from this statement, we can never conclude this. So the first conclusion is out of the window. First one cannot be, it may be a solution, but we cannot conclude it from the given statement, right? And the second, it will be very difficult for government of developing countries to provide its people decent quality of life. Now that is pretty obvious. If population is going to increase in developing countries, because of which resources are going to decrease, then obviously we conclude that people are more and resources are less. That means quality of life is going to be poor, and this is going to be a problem for the government of that country. So the second one is definitely concludable, if that is a word, from the given statements, and hence only the second one is to be taken as the answer. We cannot the second one, the first statement may be a solution, but we cannot conclude it from what is given to us in the passage. However, the second one is automatically yes. If it is true that population increases and resources are decreased, then automatically the conclusion is going to be that we are going to have a problem in providing people with a decent quality of life. So I think majority of you got it right. Others, I hope everybody understood this right now. Why only the second one can be a proper conclusion. Did everybody get it so far? Yes? The first one may be a solution, but we do not get it from the passage itself. There is no indicator that this is going to happen. But the second one, yes, that is a natural conclusion which most people generally derive when given the statements. Chalo, moving on. Statement. Prime age school going children in urban India have now become avid as well as more regular viewers of television, even in households without a TV. As a result, there has been an alarming decline in the extent of readership of newspapers. From this statement, what can we conclude? Devised means created. To devise something means to create something. Should be created, should be planned, should be made. Now, a lot of students are not getting the right one. Okay. Now, this is a bit of a tricky question if you have not been in the right frame of mind of how to interpret it, right? We automatically assume certain things which should not be done. See, it says more people are watching television, and because of which newspapers are not being read enough. And the first assumption that you are making is that this is a problem. The first assumption that you are making is that this is an undesirable situation. Is there an undesirability anywhere? There's an alarming decline in the extent of readership of newspapers. For newspapers, this is alarming. Hi, koi humko nahi pad raha hai. But who says that the situation for the general public is undesirable? Don't put external knowledge here. राइट जनरली लोग कहते हैं कि नहीं टेलीविजन नहीं देखना चाहिए, न्यूज़पेपर ज्यादा पढ़ना चाहिए. बट द पैसेज डज नॉट नेसेसरली से दैट वॉचिंग टेलीविजन इज बैड. न्यूज़पेपर्स कम पढ़े जा रहे हैं, ठीक है, बट दैट इज अलार्मिंग फॉर द न्यूज़पेपर्स. Is it a bad and undesirable situation? We don't know. So, do we need to conclude that method of increasing the readership of newspapers should be devised? From this passage, if they had said that more of newspapers is necessary, then we can say that method of increasing the readership should be devised. But it does not say that it is a problem. So the first conclusion from the passage itself, from the statement itself, we cannot necessarily understand. We cannot necessarily derive. Take a look at the second one. A team of experts should be sent to other countries to study the impact of TV on the readership of newspapers. Why? They're just giving you a scenario. More television is happening, less readership of newspaper is happening. Why do we need to understand it? From the passage, we do not get any hint that a change is required. So, in this one, neither one of them technically is a conclusion that you can derive from what is given to you as a statement. The statement itself does not naturally lead you to any either of these two conclusions. Did we get that? Are we together on that? The statement itself, if we don't assume anything, if we don't let our knowledge of things to come into picture, then by itself the statement is just a statement. Neither of the conclusions can necessarily be derived from them. Okay, next one. In Japan, now this is very interesting. Again, you have to understand how things work. In Japan, the incidence of stomach cancer is very high, while that of bowel cancer is very low. But Japanese immigrate to Hawaii, this is reversed. The rate of bowel cancer increases, but the rate of stomach cancer is reduced in the next generation. All this is related to nutrition. The diets of Japanese in Hawaii are different than those in Japan. You've got this as a situation given to you, right? From this, what do you conclude? The two conclusions, which of them can be concluded from what is given to you as the information in the passage? Again, now very interesting. See, it says Japan में एंड हवाई में क्या है? जापान में स्टमक कैंसर ज़्यादा है, हवाई में बाउल कैंसर ज़्यादा है, राइट? तो लोग जब जापान से हवाई जाते हैं तो कैंसर का जो कौन सा कैंसर उनको अफेक्ट करेगा, दैट चेंजेस. नाउ व्हाई इज दैट, why do Japanese have high stomach cancer, low bowel cancer, but Hawaiians have high bowel cancer, low stomach cancer? Because the diets are different. They're saying the diets are different. So the type of cancer which affects the people of that region more is also different. ठीक है. Now, do we conclude that the same diet in Hawaii should be propagated in Japan also? See, how it says yes, stomach cancer, bowel cancer का जो भी है वो सब diet से related है. Okay? But why should the Hawaiian diet be also given to Japan? Hawaiian diet से क्या हो रहा है? Stomach cancer तो कम हो रहा है, लेकिन bowel cancer बढ़ रहा है ना भाई. दोनों जगहों पे एक कैंसर ज्यादा है, एक कैंसर कम है, राइट? तो जापानीज जो फूड है वो स्टमक कैंसर को बढ़ावा देता है, हवाईयन जो फूड है वो बाउल कैंसर को बढ़ावा देता है. इफ हवाईयन फूड इज गिवन टू द जापानीज में शायद स्टमक कैंसर तो कम हो जाए, लेकिन बाउल कैंसर तो बढ़ेगा ना, बिकॉज इट इज रिलेटेड टू द टाइप ऑफ फूड. So having bowel cancer, is it better than having stomach cancer? I don't know. So I cannot say that the same diet has to go from one place to another. I cannot say हवाई का जो फूड है वो जापान को भी दे दो, हवाई का जो डाइट है वो जापान को भी दे दो. I cannot say. Why? Because I do not know whether it is better to have bowel cancer than stomach cancer. So first conclusion is out. Second, there is no comparison of the degree of either. कौन सिवियर है, कौन अच्छा है, कौन बुरा है, कौन ज्यादा है, कौन कम है. There is absolutely nothing which tells me bowel cancer is less severe, more severe. I don't know anything. So I cannot conclude either one of them from. So neither one, neither two. One भी नहीं कर सकते, two भी नहीं कर सकते. So neither one nor two. That should be my answer. Now, did everybody understand? Few of you thought A could be an option, but A also cannot be an option. अगर मैं बोलूं कि इंडिया में लोग चाकू से मरते हैं, यूएस में लोग बंदूक से मरते हैं. सो आई कैन नॉट से कि इंडियन लॉज यूएस में भी पास करो, बिकॉज चाकू या बंदूक मरने तो वाला ही है बंदा. सो यू कैन नॉट से वन इज बेटर देन दी अदर, तो एक दूसरे में फिट करो. सो ए कैन नॉट बी माई ऑप्शन एंड डी डज नॉट हैव एनी relevance because it cannot be concluded from what is given as data in the statement. So neither one of them is true. I hope everybody understood this now. I hope everybody got what is the meaning here. Yes? ठीक है, चलो. Next one. The government run company had asked its employees to declare their income and assets, but it has been strongly resisted by employee union and no employee is going to declare his income. Declare income and assets means to show to the government how much money I have so that you are taxed for it. So government says कि हमारे employees को अपने income and assets सब बताने चाहिए ताकि उस पर proper tax लगे. But the union is saying no employee is going to openly declare his income like this. Why? So what do you conclude from this? Maitri is giving me a separate conclusion. That's correct. But from the given options, what is the answer is what we are looking for. Maitri says, it seems as if they want to evade taxes. Now, Maitri, if that was given as a conclusion, I could have taken that as a conclusion. That if they don't want to declare, it's possible they want to evade taxes. If that was given as a conclusion, I would have taken it. Yes. But from these options, first, if you know that certain employees, certain workers don't want to show how much they earn, will you think the employees of this company do not seem to have any additional undisclosed income beside their salary? कि इसको सैलरी के अलावा कोई एक्स्ट्रा पैसा नहीं मिलता होगा, इसलिए वो अपना इनकम नहीं बताना चाहता. भाई ये तो उल्टा हो गया ना. If a person does not have any additional income other than salary, he or she will have no problem in declaring their income. It is those who earn more than just their regular salary who have a problem because they want to hide. They don't want to pay taxes on that. So the first one is definitely out of the question. Shiv, understand this. Shiv, ये नहीं हो सकता. Look at it. See, अगर आपके पास regular salary के अलावा भी कहीं से पैसा आ रहा है, तो आप गवर्नमेंट को वो पैसा नहीं बताना चाहोगे because you want to hide, you want to save tax. But supposing See, salary to everybody knows. The government already knows how much salary it is giving to its workers. So if you do not have any problem, if you do not have any other source of income, you only are getting your legitimate salary. Why should you have a problem in showing? So A cannot be my option. Second, whether the employee union wants the senior officers to declare their income or not, how do I derive from this? The only conclusion I'm making is that the employees themselves don't want to show their income. Whether they want the senior officers to show their income or not cannot be derived logically from the statement. So neither one of them is actually relevant. Yes, Vanshika? If you have nothing to hide, obviously you are okay with it. So when you say that I don't want to show, that means you have something to hide. At least that's what we, no, that is not whether it is the reality or not, but that is what we conclude after hearing it, right? I hope you got that. Yes? I hope everybody understood both of them. So neither one of them is actually a relevant as thing as a conclusion. Maitri, I hope we got this now. When you hear this, you don't get the first conclusion that you get. The first conclusion that you get is they don't want to show because kuch to golmaal hai. That's correct. Excellent. Chalo. Monitoring. Monitoring means what? Supervision. Monitoring has become an integral part in the planning of social development programs. It is recommended that management information system be developed for all the programs. This is likely to give a feedback on the performance of the functionaries and the efficacy with which services are being delivered. Excellent. Oh, good. Right answer so far. Very good. Okay. Monitoring, supervision. It is monitoring is very important for a social development program. So we should develop the system. If it is important and they are saying that we should develop a system. That means we want all of them to be evaluated, right? They say monitoring is important. It should be made part of the program because it tells you how the performance is. And when you get a feedback on something's performance, that means you are evaluating it. Right. So combining all the given things together, we definitely can say that all the social development programs should be evaluated because that's where the entire statement is leading us. And second, if the first one is correct, the second one is also more or less along the same track, that there's a need to monitor the performance of the workers. They have said monitoring is important. Monitoring system should be developed. Why? Because it gives a feedback. So all this talk does tell us that we need to evaluate both social development programs and the performance of workers, right? So definitely both of them are true. 1 and 2, both the conclusions are more or less the same, right? One tells you about the evaluation of the entire program. Second, it tells you about the evaluation or monitoring the performance of the workers. But the performance of the workers is the same as evaluating the program itself. And the evaluation of the program is done by evaluating the performance of the workers. So both of them are together. Now Prasanna, see either or. The same example which I have been giving for either or in arguments also, in assumptions also, I'm going to give here. If I have only one child, you can conclude either I have a daughter or I have a son. You cannot conclude I have both a son and a daughter because I've got only one child. So when two options are there and one of the option will cancel out the other option, but you do not know which one to take, that is either or. Did you get that? So when the two options are given to you, first check, are they playing against each other? Are the two options like contradictory to each other where you cannot have them simultaneously? Right? For example, I scored X marks out of 100. First conclusion, I passed the exam. Second conclusion, I failed the exam. That is either or. Correct? because either I have passed the exam or I have failed the exam. I cannot have done both of them simultaneously, and you do not know what has happened. And yes, either or option is very rarely asked in the exams. Usually they don't go with 5 options. They generally don't give the either or option. They go with only one, only two, neither or both. But in case either or is part of that, then understand. Did you understand? Either or is when the two options, they cancel out each other. And it's very, very rare to come across an either or questions. I hope everybody understood this one. Good. Chalo. Next one. The TV programs telecast specially for women are packed with a variety of recipes and household hints. A major portion of magazines for women also contains the items mentioned above. From this, what can you conclude? So it says that TV programs, they are and magazines, they have a lot of recipes and household things. From this, I cannot conclude that they are not interested in other things. Why? Because the statement does not say that TV programs and magazines contain only recipes and household hints. It says a major portion is filled with these items, but it does not mean that the other things have been excluded. Right? Read the statement very carefully. It does not say that a majority, it does not say only recipes are given. It says a large amount of recipes and hints are given. So I cannot conclude that they are not interested in other things. Similarly, the second one, it says an average woman's primary interest lies in home and especially the kitchen. Now, this matches exactly what the statement says. The statement says majority are recipes and household hints, and the conclusion is her primary interest is home and kitchen. Primary means majority wala, not all wala. So there can be secondary interests also. And when you see that the particular magazine or particular television program is full of X items, then the first conclusion is that the person who is looking at it is interested in that item. Right? Now, supposing there's a television channel, let's take into consideration Pogo or Cartoon Network. I don't know if Cartoon Network is still on, but Pogo or Cartoon Network ke andar, you will not be seeing programs which tell you about how to grow agricultural crops, because that is not the kind of audience, right? If you look at a news channel के अंदर cartoons नहीं दिखाएंगे, because news channel के viewers are not interested in that. So I cannot conclude the first one, but I can conclude the second one, right? Average woman. Now the word average woman does not mean a woman who is average. Average woman का मतलब है in general. When all the women are considered, then what comes as the average liking. So the word average here does not refer to the individual woman who is average. It means the woman who is the representative of woman in general. Average woman means most of the woman का general preference क्या है. And no, वंशिका, feminism का झंडा यहाँ पे नहीं उठाना है, because it's not misogyny. It's not necessarily misogyny, right? Because the number of woke women in India, if I take India as, is still very less as compared to a large majority. Surveys have been done and surveys have very clearly shown these facts. And anyway, we are not understanding GK and current affairs. These statements need not be necessarily true in real life. It's just an example. Did we get that? Did everybody get this? Right? So don't take these things as real life statistics. Just an example. I can change woman with man. Won't make a big difference. Right? Chalo. Moving ahead then. Next one. The distance of 900 kilometers by road between Bombay and Jafra will be reduced to 280 kilometers by sea. And this will lead to a saving of rupees 7.92 crores per annum on fuel. Can I conclude that transportation by sea is cheaper? Now here is where mathematics is necessary. Now, how do we say whether something is cheap or expensive? To consider something cheap or expensive, we always consider the per unit cost. We say a mango is more expensive than a banana because one mango may cost 50 rupees, one banana may cost 5 rupees. We cannot say bananas are more expensive than mangoes because बनाना का 10 बनाना जब मैंने 1 टन खरीदा तो 1000 रुपए का था और मैंने एक मैंगो खरीदा और सिर्फ 50 रुपए का था. नो, वी कंसिडर द पर यूनिट कॉस्ट. A ton of bananas may be 1000 rupees, but per unit it will be lesser. So bananas are still cheaper. So here it says the distance of 900 kilometers between Bombay and Jafra is reduced to 280 kilometers. This will save rupees 7.92 crores per annum. Does it mean that C is cheaper? We have to know the per unit cost. For example, suppose the travel by road is 1 rupee per kilometer. Right, 1 rupee per kilometer. So by road 900 रुपए लगेंगे. By sea it is 2 rupees per kilometer. 2 rupees. But सिर्फ 280 किलोमीटर ट्रैवल करना है. So even if it is 2 rupees per kilometer, I still spend only 560 rupees and I save the remaining amount. Does this mean that sea is cheaper than land? Land पे सिर्फ 1 रुपए लगता है पर किलोमीटर. Sea में 2 रुपए पर किलोमीटर लगता है. Which is cheap? Land is cheap. But here the distance by land is 900, the distance by sea is only 280, and hence you save money even though sea is not actually cheap. So I cannot say transportation by sea is cheaper. It simply is, it works out to be cheaper for this particular route. So I cannot say that transportation by sea is actually cheaper. So A does not work. Second, obviously, whenever you are hearing of any measure which reduces to saving of fuel, the conclusion, yes, we should do it. Right? ये तो बड़ा ही normal conclusion है कि yes, it should be done. So, B, only the second one can be concluded. Logically and mathematically speaking, the first one is not necessarily true. Shashwat, here it says distance between Bombay and Jafra is given. In other case, road might be cheap. Again, whenever you have to say road is cheap or sea is cheap, the cheap factor is when per unit calculation is done. Here we don't have any of that calculations, right? So whether sea is cheap, whether land is cheap, I don't know. Per unit kitna hoga? Second, kitna by land I may be sending, let us say 100 kilogram of stuff at a time. By sea, it may be possible to send 1000 kilogram. So again, I do not know per unit कौन expensive है कौन cheap है. So I cannot make that comparison either ways. Yes? Namra, conclusion. From the moment you get all this statistic, do you conclude, yes, we should do it because we have to save it? From this statistic, if it was not given that so much savings is going to take place, you will not conclude that fuel must be saved. Right? तब external knowledge हो जाऊंगा. But the moment this tells you that fuel में saving होना चाहिए, first reaction क्या, हाँ बिल्कुल करो, अच्छी बात है. Yes? Yes, ma'am. Savings is given. Does it necessary? Now, but we do not know how this fuel is saved. Is it because simply per unit, or because more things can be transported at the same time? Does that make it cheap? How is that savings happening? Is it because land is actually cheap, or is it because sea is actually cheap, or is it because per time you can send more units? Right? Let us say that land is 1 rupee per kilometer, sea is 2 rupees per kilometer, but land 1 rupee में आप 100 आइटम्स भेज सकते हो, sea 2 rupees में आप 1000 आइटम्स भेज सकते हो. Then again it works out to be cheap. So per unit, there's a lot of calculations which need to be done, and we don't have to sit and do those calculations. So I cannot conclude that it is cheaper because a lot of factors are missing here. Did you get that? Jay, conclusion वही होता है जो mention नहीं होता. If you are saving money on fuel, how do you save money on fuel if fuel itself is not saved? If कम fuel is not used, तो पैसे कैसे बचेंगे fuel पे? So by saying that you're saving so much on money on fuel, you're actually saving the fuel, right? How can you not save fuel if you're saving money on it? Did you get that? And what are you going to conclude from this? It's not what is given in the statement. ये statement सुन के आपके मन में क्या ख्याल आता है? Any normal reader के मन में क्या आता है? Should it be done? Yes, the first thing which comes to be in my mind is yes, fuel must be saved, so this is good. So in a way, yes, it is concluded from the passage. Conclusion is not directly from the passage. Remember, assumption भी वही होता है. Passage में directly नहीं होगा वो. Passage के लिए क्या चाहिए? That is the assumption. Passage में से क्या निकल आता है? That is the conclusion. Understand these guys. If it is directly given in the passage, it won't be the answer because it's just the statement. What you're deriving from it based on information given to you, that is the conclusion. Like remember first and second example के अंदर we had done something of hard work or something was there and we had derived that yes it is true because that is what a normal person would think the moment he gets that data. So again here, the moment you hear all these things, you'll say yes, they should be done because fuel must be saved. You derive that, right? That is the thought which comes to mind. True or not, we don't know, but that is what the thought is, and hence that is the conclusion. Yes. No, Maitri. TV and newspaper mein only those people who think that newspaper reading is better than television will have that. Not necessarily everybody thinks that. A normal man may or may not think which is better and which is worse. For a lot of people, they might say television is actually better than newspapers. For the unpad admi, and believe me, a lot of people are uneducated. It's only the uneducated and those who are preparing specifically for entrance exams and stuff who seem to think that newspapers are better. A lot of people may say television is better. Even if I'm uneducated, I can get information from television. So there's a logical reason why television may be better than newspapers also. Did you get that, Maitri? Chalo. Moving ahead. Next one. Very good. Majority are getting this right. Majority are getting this right. Badhiya. I like it. Okay. Humiliated, insulted somebody. Now, of course, one reason of insulting somebody is you don't like, but it is not necessary that you insult only if you don't like somebody, right? I can love somebody and still insult that person in public. So just because the manager humiliated Sachin in the presence of the colleagues, you cannot conclude necessarily that the manager did not like Sachin. हो सकता है manager generally खड़ूस आदमी हो जो हर किसी को humiliate करता हो, right? So the first conclusion, I cannot say that the manager did not like Sachin. And second, how does it matter whether Sachin was popular or not with his colleagues? Sachin might be the most loved person in his department, and yet that cannot prevent the manager from insulting him or humiliating him, right? So neither one of the two conclusions can necessarily be derived from the given statement. So as I think most of you got it right. Yep, Prasanna. Statements don't have to be all economics and political science and stuff. It can be, this is related to what? This is related to human behavior, right? These are human behavior statements. As managers or lawyers or any professionals, you need to understand this. And in fact, these things are more relevant for students who are going for professional courses than the other things. Right? Because you need to understand, just because somebody has insulted you or humiliated you publicly does not mean they hate you. This learning is actually important for students. अब कॉलेज में जाओगे, स्कूल में भी कोई आपको डांटेगा, पब्लिकली आपको ह्यूमिलिएट करेगा, you cannot automatically start thinking that person hates me, right? In fact, these statements are more I want more of these statements to be taught to students. Maths, English तो कोई भी कैसे भी सिखा देगा, but it is interpreting such things which is more important. I hope everybody understands it. Chalo, moving on. Women's organizations in India have welcomed the amendment of the Industrial Employment Rule 1946 to curb sexual harassment at the workplace. Yes, Disha, that's right. Swayam, गड़बड़ छे भाई. Anmol, na. Prasanna, no. Guys, remember, conclusions have to be from the data which is given, and it has to be something which a reasonable, rational, normal thinking person would make. It says women's organizations have welcomed the amendment of the act to curb sexual harassment. That means they are now more happy with how this act is. Okay? First conclusion, that sexual harassment of women at workplace is more prevalent in India as compared to other developed countries. How do I get this? How am I getting the comparison of India vis-a-vis other countries with reference to sexual harassment through this? इंडिया में ज्यादा है, उसको कम करने के लिए लॉ को स्ट्रिक्ट किया है. आई कैन से इंडिया मे हैव हैड मोर सेक्सुअल हैरेसमेंट इन द पास्ट, नाउ वी वांट टू रिड्यूस सेक्सुअल हैरेसमेंट, हेंस द लॉ हैज बीन अमेंडेड. ठीक है, दैट मे बी रेलेवेंट, बट from this there is absolutely nothing which says whether sexual harassment in India is more compared to other countries or not. Even if it is not more compared to other countries, we still can have a law which makes it more strict. Let's say India has the lowest amount of sexual harassment, but फिर भी हम law बना तो सकते ही है ना कि sexual harassment को और भी कम करो. Just because we are the lowest in sexual harassment does not mean it is good enough. As long as sexual harassment is there, we need something to stop it. So A makes no sense. First conclusion makes no sense. Second, many organizations in India will stop recruiting women to avoid such problems. Now that is a very cynical way of thinking, right? Does this mean that companies, organizations actually want sexual harassment to take place? If you say that the second is true, that means you think companies want sexual harassment of women to take place, and because this law prevents this from happening, so they will not harass women at all. Wow, this is actually the worst kind of thought we can have. Do we think companies are that bad? Do we have that kind of image of organizations that just because they are now not going to be able to harass women, they will not hire women? In fact, I would think that organizations will actually hire more women because women will feel safer in the organizations, right? Whether organizations hire or not, but more women will be likely to even apply to these places because now they may believe that the law is in a better position to protect them. So can I say organizations will stop recruiting women? Absolutely not. That is a bad way to think about organizations. So in this case also, neither one of them is true. No, Prasanna, I will not call it being misogynist. I will call it being misandrist. A person who thinks that because I'm not allowed to harass women, so I will not hire women, is actually thinking wrongly about men. The person is thinking wrongly about men. Men are all predators, men are all harassers, and they don't want laws which will prevent them from harassing, so they will not hire women. Bhai, that is actually thinking badly about men, not the other way around. So it's not misogyny, this is misandry. Anyway, but nobody thinks like that. At least normal people don't, right? So we will not think that there will be less recruitment of women. So neither one of them. Chalo. Moving ahead. Nation X faced growing international opposition for its decision to explore 8 nuclear weapons at its test site. Which one? Okay, first one. The statement is about opposition from international community, which means outsiders. So concluding that the citizens of the nation favor the decision is absolutely wrong, because the statement is not at all what internally people think. It's about what outsiders think. So first conclusion tossed out of the window. Second one, Nation X is facing growing international opposition for its decision for exploding 8 nuclear weapons. First, it does not specify who exactly is opposing. It says outsiders are opposing. Is it necessary that the powerful countries don't want other nations to become as powerful? For example, supposing India exploded nuclear weapons and Pakistan opposes it, do we think, first of all, Pakistan is a powerful country and it does not want us to become as powerful as them? Couldn't it be that it is actually a weaker country and hence does not want the Bajuwala to become more weak and hence a more of a threat? Do you have to be a powerful country to oppose others from becoming more powerful? No, it's not necessary that powerful nations may oppose. It could be that the weaker nations are actually opposing, that they're afraid. So, how do we conclude that the powerful countries don't want others to become powerful? Or it could be that powerful countries are opposing it, but it is not because it may make us powerful, but because nuclear weapons will lead to a lot of problems in the future. It's not that they don't want us to become powerful, but they don't want the world to go ahead in a situation where everybody is destroyed. It could be anything. I don't know what it is. So I cannot conclude that powerful countries don't want others to become powerful. It could be anything. I cannot conclude anything reasonably. And hence, neither one of them. I cannot conclude it. Yes, Swam, powerful nations like China might oppose, but I cannot assume that it is those countries doing it. It could be for any other reason. Even if powerful countries oppose, the reason may not be because they don't want us to become powerful. So I cannot reasonably say that this is true. I cannot reasonably say that this is true. First, I cannot say powerful countries are opposing. Second, I cannot say this is the reason why they are opposing. So the conclusion is false. Possibility, see, I can assume it, but I cannot conclude it. I can assume that it is happening, but it is not a reasonable conclusion. You get that? That's a difference. Right? From the given statement, it says international people are opposed. Internationally, there is an opposition. Can you conclude that it is the powerful countries who are opposing? I don't know. Can I say it is because they don't want me to become powerful? I don't know. The statement does not give me enough data to find out who is opposing and why they are opposing. I can assume anything, but I cannot conclude it. Nilay, now did you get it? I can assume things for here, but the data does not support the conclusion that it is powerful countries who because of this reason are opposing. Right? Chalo. Moving on. Next one then. Big line. In a highly centralized power structure, in which even senior cabinet ministers are prepared to reduce themselves to pathetic coteries, or yes man, that is not countries, it is coteries. Let's make the change there. Coteries. Right? Coteries, jo ji hazuri karte hain. So, in a highly centralized power structure in which even senior cabinet ministers are prepared to reduce themselves to pathetic coteries or yes men, airing views that are primarily intended to anticipate or reflect the prime minister's own performances, there can be no place for any consensus that is quite different from real or contrived unanimity of opinion, expressed through a well orchestrated endorsement of the leader's action. Namra, if you don't know the answer and there are no negative marks, can we go for nota option? Always none of the above is one of the generally none of the above option होगा नहीं, right? इस situation में देखो none of the above option ही नहीं है, क्या mark करोगे? You have to mark something, right? So first of all, did we understand the passage? It's a single sentence. It's a brilliant sentence. Yes, a lot of you might not even have understood it. So let's first break down the words and then understand what it means. It's actually very simple. So what is a highly centralized power structure? Highly centralized power structure means an organization in which all the power is not spread across to various people, but it is in the hand of generally one person or very few people. Highly centralized power structure means an organization in which almost all the power is in the hand of a few, maybe even one individual, right? So in a highly centralized power structure in which even senior cabinet ministers are prepared to reduce themselves to pathetic coteries or yes men. So जब power structure ऐसा है कि सिर्फ एक बंदे के हाथ में power है, तो उस organization में जो senior cabinet ministers हैं, जो senior बंदे हैं, वो भी अपने आप को सिर्फ जी हजूर बना देते हैं. Even the senior cabinet ministers, they reduce themselves to being just yes men. Yes men means जो सिर्फ हाँ में हाँ मिलाते हैं. The airing views that are primarily intended to anticipate or reflect the prime minister's own performance. जब पावर सब प्राइम मिनिस्टर के हाथ में है, तो जो सीनियर मिनिस्टर्स हैं वो भी प्राइम मिनिस्टर जो बोलता है उसके हां में हां मिलाने ही मानते हैं सही है. ऐसे सिचुएशन में there cannot be a place for consensus which is different from real or contrived unanimity of opinion. Consensus means everybody agrees to something. Now real consensus क्या है? Means everybody honestly agrees with something. So honestly सब yes बोलेंगे, ऐसा हो ही नहीं सकता. क्यों? Because there is a contrived unanimity of opinion. Contrived means जो artificially create किया गया है. Unanimity of opinion means everybody agrees to it. Expressed through a well orchestrated endorsement of the leader's actions. Orchestrated endorsement means you support something. Orchestrated endorsement means you are not voluntarily support something, but you have to support it. Right? आपसे सपोर्ट करवाया गया है. तो जहां पे सारा पावर प्राइम मिनिस्टर के हाथ में है, जहां पे जो सीनियर मिनिस्टर्स हैं वो भी खुद अपनी राय नहीं रख सकते, लेकिन जो भी प्राइम मिनिस्टर करता है उसके हां में हां मिलाना पड़ता है. ऐसे सिचुएशन के अंदर ऑनेस्ट कंसेंसस कैन नॉट बी पॉसिबल, लेकिन सब जो प्राइम मिनिस्टर चाहता है उसी के हां में हां मिलाएंगे. दैट इज द स्टेटमेंट. डिड यू गेट दैट? मयूक, no political opinions here. But did you get the statement, what it means? If you yes, then look at the conclusions. The ministers play safe by not giving anti-government views. Second, the prime minister does not encourage his colleagues to render their own views. Okay, so here the first one, that the ministers play safe by not giving anti-government views. I think that is pretty much obvious. Yes, जहां पे ऑटोक्रेसी है वहां पे जो मिनिस्टर्स हैं जिनके पास पावर नहीं है वो सेफ करेंगे, गवर्नमेंट के खिलाफ कुछ नहीं बोलेंगे, बिकॉज अल्टीमेटली द गवर्नमेंट, एनी व्यू ऑन द गवर्नमेंट मे रिफ्लेक्ट ऑन द प्राइम मिनिस्टर. सो द मिनिस्टर्स बोलते हैं जब पावर नहीं है, जब पावर पूरा एक बंदे के हाथ में है, देन लेट्स बी सेफ, लेट्स नॉट गिव एनी एंटी गवर्नमेंट व्यूज. दैट इज एन ऑब्वियस कंक्लूजन. फर्स्ट वन डेफिनेटली ट्रू. बट हियर द प्राइम मिनिस्टर डज नॉट एनकरेज हिज कॉलीग्स टू रेंडर देयर ओन व्यूज cannot be reasonably concluded. Here the power is in his hand, so the other people are following him, are doing Ji Hazuri. But whether it is the prime minister who is dictatorially forcing them to do so, we cannot say that, right? It could be that the prime minister is not a person who is wanting to do this, but the power structure is such that the ministers think they have to do Ji Hazuri. Could be possible, right? So the second conclusion is not necessarily true from the given statement, right? It may or may not be. I'm not sure. The data is not adequate to support it. We know what the actions of the people are, what the actions of the cabinet ministers are. But is it a reflection of the nature of the prime minister? We don't know. So only the first one is actually to be considered as a reasonable thing. Yes, the first one is reasonably concluded. Second one, can I reasonably conclude that? I don't know. Are we together on this? I hope everybody understood this one. Why the second one? The second one is slightly controversial, but we have to only stick to what the data is given to us. From the data, it is not reasonable to say that this can happen, and hence only the first one can be concluded. I hope everybody got this one. Yes? Then moving ahead, National Aluminum Company has moved India from a position of shortage to self-sufficiency in the metal. Which one? Conclusions. So first, shortage means we wanted it but we did not get it. So obviously when you want something and the country does not have it, what do? You import it, right? If you don't want it, you don't import it. But a shortage implies that there is a need, but it is not met. So obviously we need to import it. So previously India had to import aluminum. Now self-sufficient. Fair enough. First conclusion, reasonable from the data which is available to us. And it says that it was shortage, and from that it went to self-sufficient. That means it has been increasing the production. So माइनस में था, जीरो पे आ गया. सेम रेट पे अगर बढ़ेगा तो ऑब्वियसली प्लस में जाएगा. एंड जब सरप्लस में जाएगा, एक्सेस होगा, तो वी विल एक्सपोर्ट इट. यू एक्सपोर्ट इट, यू अर्न फॉरेन एक्सचेंज. सो is it not reasonable to say that if the company is progressing at this speed, then it will soon start manufacturing excessive amount, which then will be a foreign exchange earner? A reasonable conclusion, definitely, because of which both the given options can actually be reasonably concluded. Namra asks, can't we leave? I presume you mean live. Can't we live in shortage rather than importing? See, why would you have to live in short? If something is necessary and you don't have it, why should you live like that? If let's say there's a shortage of food grains, why wouldn't we import it? If there is a shortage of something, why shouldn't we import it? Why should we think नहीं shortage नहीं है, स्वदेशी बनेंगे, मर जाएंगे लेकिन import नहीं करेंगे? No government is ever going to do that. If something is in shortage, if you cannot produce it, the reasonable person will say import it. Why shouldn't we import it? Namra, did you get that? It might take 100 years to develop from short. Okay, ठीक है. So with this speed, nobody says fast. So at this speed, will become a foreign exchange earner. We have already reached zero level. So even if it is slow, the moment we go 1 over requirement, we can start selling it, right? Even if we go 1 over requirement, we can start selling it. That means yes. Did you get that? Now there was some other question before. I missed it. Just a moment. Previous question में किसी को कुछ doubt था. Mayuk says anti-government doesn't necessarily mean anti-PM. Yeah. No, 1 minute. I'm going to go back to the previous question. Mayuk says anti-government doesn't mean anti whatever. No. But if the ministers are, it says they're reducing themselves to pathetic coteries or yes men. The statement says that they have reduced themselves to yes men. They say haan mein haan. So obviously they are not going to give any anti-government view. Did you get that, Mayuk? Yes, but that does not mean that they are not going to, because the government, today, when I say government of India, no, Narendra Modi is what comes to my mind. Nobody says Nirmala Sitharaman means government of India. Right? किसी individual minister के against आप बोलते हो, तो normally you don't take it as speaking against or for the government. But the moment we speak about the head of the government, we associate the head of the government with the entire government. Yes or no? It may or may not be true. But the head of an organization is taken to represent the organization. If you are speaking against the head, that means you are speaking against the organization. That is the general common man's viewpoint. Yes. A minister can criticize other minister. That is not called an anti-government view. But if a minister says something which is anti-government, people may think that it is anti-PM. Or rather forget what people think. Do you think a G Hazur person जिसको प्राइम मिनिस्टर में पावर दिखता है वो गवर्नमेंट के खिलाफ कुछ बोलेगा? Let's talk about the common man's perspective. It's about the common man's perspective. It is already given to you as data in the statement that the person has reduced himself to be a yes man. वो हाँ में हाँ मिलाएगा. So जो बंदा हाँ में हाँ ही मिलाता है वो कभी भी एंटी गवर्नमेंट व्यू देगा या जो he will play safe by saying things which are goody goody. As simple as that. I hope you understood this one. Mayuk, I hope you got this one. Next, Swayam says, where it is given that we are going to become. No, it's not given. But is it a reasonable conclusion from the data? The data says we were in minus. and it says that now we are self-sufficient. Now jitna supply hai utna, jitna demand hai utna hi supply hai. So look at the conclusion. With this speed, what does that mean? If you are going, supposing we were manufacturing 10, it was in shortage. 10 जब manufacture हो रहा था shortage है. 15 जब manufacture कर रहे हैं तो requirement को match कर रहा है. So speed क्या हुआ? 10, 15, automatically next you will think as 20. Requirement 15 की है, आप 10 से 15 से 20 पे जाओगे. That means you are in surplus. The moment you are in surplus, you are not going to keep it here and waste it, right? You are going to sell it and earn foreign exchange. Logic. It's not mentioned, but can't we conclude from it? That's exactly what a conclusion is. Conclusion is from the given data, can you reasonably say that this is true? From the given data, can you reasonably say that it is true? If yes, then yes, it's a conclusion. Like assumption, and I said this before also, like assumptions, conclusions don't have to be a part of the passage, but they only have to be reasonably derived from the given passage. Okay? One says we can store it for future as a reserve. You can do it, but it does not mean, it says it can become. It will become nahi bola, it can become. It does not say whether it is actually going, but yes, it is a reasonable conclusion from the data. Yes, that we will have enough to sell it. और स्टोर करके भी कितना स्टोर करेंगे? स्टोर करके भी कितना स्टोर करेंगे? We can't store everything ad infinitum. How you get that? That's the problem. Maitri says sometimes we think a lot. Absolutely. And this is the problem. Can you restrict your thinking to that of a common man? Understand, most of us cannot be considered common because we are designed to think a little bit extra. But we have to think as a common man, as a person on the street. आप रास्ते में जा रहे हो, किसी आम आदमी से मिलते हो, might not be very highly educated, right? Will the man think like that? And because a large part of the population is like that, we have to not think of extraordinary things. We have to think basically kya socha jayega. That's why these things are actually designed to test whether can you think like a common man. Because not every person will get a law degree. Not every person will get a management degree. After getting a law or a management degree, however, you have to work for the common people. You have to deal with the common people, those who do not have this kind of education. So these things are designed to test whether you can keep your thought process at that level. This is precisely for the reason that they are testing. That you don't get into extraordinary thought lines. Can you think reasonably? That's exactly what these are tested, right? So both of them. Did everybody get this one? Prasanna, a person who can, you need to think extra for development to take place. And you need to think like a common man to get that development to the common people. The world cannot progress without extraordinary thinking. But with extraordinary thinking, you can make the world progress only when you take it to the common man. Sabka saath sabka vikas types. So as an extraordinary thinker, you make an improvement to the world and then you let the entire world benefit from that improvement by talking in their language. And that's why it is necessary. So you need to be able to think extraordinarily, but be able to communicate and think with the common man at the same time. And that's what higher education is all about, right? Did you get that? Why you have to learn extra? Chalo. Anyway, moving ahead. Jade plant has thick leaves and it requires little water. Beautiful. Jade plant has thick leaves. It requires little water. Now this is again, this is a very classic example which teaches you of generalization and specialization. From a specific example, you cannot make a general conclusion. And the biggest mistake which we make. Supposing like the biggest mistake nowadays what we see happening in society, Mr. X raped a woman. So all men are rapists. A lot of people make a bad conclusion like that, right? From one example, they tend to stereotype everything. Just because you saw one particular person do something, you cannot use it to generalize the entire species. Exactly like this. So if the jade plant has thick leaves and requires little water, can you say all plants with thick leaves require little water? No, you cannot. From one example, you cannot make a generic statement. So the first one is definitely not true. Second, however, can you conclude from the data that if jade plants have thick leaves and require little water, can I conclude that they may be grown in places where water is not in abundance? And guys, the may word is very important. It does not say will we be grown. अगर उसको पानी की जरूरत नहीं है तो ऐसी जगह जहां पे पानी है वहां पे वो उग सकता है. It may grow, and that is reasonably concluded. Hence, only the second one. Mayuk says, haven't our society generalized women since forever? This statement of yourself itself is a generalization. You are part of the society. I am also part of the society. I haven't generalized women. Have you generalized women? I don't know. Which society are you talking about? By making a statement that society has generalized women, again we are generalizing everybody. And that's the kind of thought we have to break. Right? Some people have generalized, or the media seems to have generalized. Right? That perception is there. But that does not mean everybody is doing it. Right? I hope you understand. And this is precisely what statements of arguments, assumptions, conclusions, the thought process is important. I hope you understand that, Mayuk. Chalo, moving on. Use craft colors. They add color to our life. It's an advertisement. Such statements are very important, especially for those for managers who are going to get into management, even for lawyers who will be faced with such advertisements when clients complain against such advertisements. So for all streams, very important. Okay. Use craft color. Zindagi mein rang bhar dega. Now that is definitely a very catchy advertisement. So can I say catchy slogans do not attract people? ना, in fact हम तो उल्टा सोचेंगे कि इसने बड़ा कैची स्लोगन बनाया है, जरूर लोगों को अट्रैक्ट करना चाहता है. सो मे बी दे थिंक कैची स्लोगन्स विल अट्रैक्ट पीपल. सो फर्स्ट वन डेफिनेटली नॉट ट्रू. नाउ द क्राफ्ट कलर का एड सेज दैट दे विल एड कलर, बट इट डज नॉट डिफरेंशिएट बिटवीन लाइट कलर्स और डार्क कलर्स. Right? There is nothing which talks about the intensity of a color. So whether people like dark color or not, I don't know. People like color. उतना हम derive कर सकते हैं. But whether they like light color, whether they like dark color, nothing of that sort can actually be reasonably concluded from this. And hence, neither one of them can be true. I hope everybody got this one. Neither one of the two options actually are making any sense. Yeah, Prasanna, that's correct. कुछ भी दे देते हैं, बट लाइफ ऐसे सिचुएशंस में दे आर सिंपलेस्ट, सो वी कैन इजीली एलिमिनेट, बट समटाइम्स दे मे फोर्स यू टू थिंक अ बिट. राइट? So that's what, see, and this is also a trick. They might give you 4 examples of ekdam high-five fun-do things, and 5th example will be very basic and stupid. होगा क्या? 4 एग्जाम्पल के बाद हम सोचेंगे कि इतना सिंपल कैसे हो सकता है, तो 5th में we will waste time trying to explore something. एग्जाम में यही होता है. Examples, questions में they may ask you a series of tough questions, and suddenly they put such a simple question. Your mind has been tuned to the tough questions कि आपको लगेगा नहीं, simple इतना नहीं हो सकता, कुछ तो गड़बड़ है दया. And you will start wasting time in such a simple question, and that is the trick. So you need to be careful. Sometimes questions can be that easy. So every question you have to take with a fresh mind. ठीक है? चलो. Next one. All those political prisoners were released on bail who had gone to jail for reasons other than political dharnas. Bail was not granted to persons involved in murders. All those political prisoners were released on bail who had gone to jail for reasons other than political dharna. Bail was not granted to persons involved in murder. Which conclusion? धरना, स्ट्राइक. शाश्वत, इंडिया में रहकर धरना अगर नहीं पता तो बॉस हम न्यूज़ ही नहीं देखते. आजकल एग्रीकल्चर में क्या चल रहा है? एग्रीकल्चरल फार्मर्स का क्या चल रहा है? Got that? धरना का मीनिंग तो अपने को पता होना चाहिए. धरना इज प्रोटेस्ट, स्ट्राइक. तो सी, अगर आप पॉलिटिकल प्रिजनर हो और आपको धरने के लिए अरेस्ट किया गया है तो आपको नहीं छोड़ेंगे. बाकी सबको छोड़ दिया. धरने के अलावा जो भी था उन सबको छोड़ दिया. लेकिन अगर मर्डर किया है तो नहीं छोड़ा है. अगर धरने के अलावा सबको पॉलिटिकल प्रिजनर को छोड़ दिया है लेकिन मर्डर वालों को नहीं छोड़ सकते, तो ऑब्वियसली पॉलिटिकल प्रिजनर्स ने मर्डर नहीं किया होगा. बिकॉज कोई पॉलिटिकल प्रिजनर मर्डर के लिए अगर अरेस्ट हुआ है तो उसको भी तो नहीं छोड़ा गया. लेकिन स्टेटमेंट कहा है कि धरने के अलावा कोई भी रीजन हो तो उनको छोड़ दिया था. तो मर्डर कुड नॉट हैव बीन अ रीजन. सो फर्स्ट वन इज ट्रू. फर्स्ट वन इज ट्रू. सेकेंड, there is nothing which tells us that some politicians were arrested or not. Did you get that? Guys, did we get that? Shashwat, see, if you are arrested, if you are a political prisoner, if you are arrested for doing dharna, I will not leave you. बाकी सारे political prisoners को मैंने छोड़ दिया. The only reason I cannot leave you is धरना. लेकिन मर्डर करने वालों को भी मैं नहीं छोड़ सकता. तो इफ ऑल एक्सेप्ट धरना सारे पॉलिटिकल प्रिजनर्स को छोड़ दिया है, उसका मतलब यह है कि पॉलिटिकल प्रिजनर्स ने मर्डर नहीं किया है. बिकॉज अगर उनको मर्डर के लिए अरेस्ट करता तो उनको भी तो नहीं छोड़ सकता. लेकिन हियर धरने के अलावा सारे रीजंस वालों को छोड़ दिया है. दैट मीन्स उनमें से कोई मर्डर वाला नहीं है. डिड यू गेट दैट? निलय, नाउ डिड यू गेट इट? A, B, C. A was arrested for dharna, B and C were arrested for some other reason and they are left. अगर B और C में से किसी ने मर्डर किया होता तो मैं उसको नहीं छोड़ सकता था, लेकिन मैंने B और C को छोड़ दिया है. So that means they have not committed murder, right? And second one makes no sense. So some politicians were not arrested. कोई लेना देना ही नहीं है. So only the first one is a conclusion. Guys, did everybody get this? Yes? Chalo, so we are done for the day. We can exit the session now. I'll be sending, of course, this PDF by end of day. I'll also be sending you the ID password for Chandan sir's session in a short while, right? So we can exit the session now and enter the session once you get the ID password.